Thomas Castellanos, the quarterback at Florida State, the new quarterback at Florida State, who's coming in from Boston College. A lot of people remember, Joe, the Bill O'Brien first year in Boston College. Tommy Castellanos gets benched. Came out in a statement with On 3 and Pete Nakos and said, and we're just paraphrasing, or I'm going to paraphrase two statements that he had, says that they don't have Nick Saban to save them now. I just can't see them stopping me. Joe, I guess, what are your thoughts about this Castellanos situation and him going after Alabama?
He needs to be a lot more humble. I mean, what he's spouting off, and I said this in the open. He's spouting off as if he was a Heisman contender last year on a national championship competing team, like he already beat Alabama in his career. He hasn't accomplished any of that. One of his other later quotes in Nakos' article was that he tore the ACC up my damn self for the last 2 years. He had a good 2023 season. He was a quality player for Boston College. He actually played better than he did he played better as a passer in 2024 than he did in 2023. Bill O'Brien was able to unlock a little bit more from him. But after he was benched, the sitting starter was a much better player than him. And Castellanos was ranked last in the ACC in QBR at 38.3. I think that there's a world where he ends up being a great player for Florida State. We already talked about how he's a great fit for Gus Malzahn's offense. I forgot that he originally was actually at UCF before he transferred to Boston College. So he was recruited by Malzahn. Malzahn clearly likes him as a young man and trusts him. There's something to be tapped into there. But, dude, you can't be making comments like this when you have so much to prove, playing for a team that is fighting to stay alive and relevant. Norvell is fighting for his job. He referenced that in the quotes that he gave to Pete Nakos. For the love of God, man, don't say dumb shit like this.
Well, not only that, I think that if this were a situation where Florida State was coming out of the season like they did in 2023, and they come into the season, all right, hey, they're 13-1 on the season. They had an incredible year. They went through the portal. I mean, you got to give them credit where credit's due. Does Mike Norvell really have this thing rolling? I think that might have been one thing. Sure. Florida State won 2 games. 2 games. Now, before I get to the comments, I do want to mention this about Castellanos. I didn't like the way that Bill O'Brien tried to use him. I don't like that he was trying to eliminate him improvising and running the football. Joe, in the ACC, for what it's worth, in 2023, he did run for 1,100 yards and 13 touchdowns. And you eliminating him for arguably his biggest strength, which is getting yards on the ground and improvising. And I feel like Bill O'Brien benching Castellanos because he's not the fit for the quarterback of what the offense that he wants to run. Like, I don't think Castellanos is a bad quarterback at all. I think he can move. He's got to get better as a thrower. I mean, Joe, you and I talk about this all the time. You can't sit at 60% completion percentage and be that erratic as a passer and think that you're going to win games. Problem is that the dude is very electric, and he can really hurt you with his legs. All of that being said, you're going up against a team in Alabama, regardless of what happened to them last season or not, them going 9-3, regardless, they have been the pinnacle of the sport the last 2 decades. They have a new head coach, and I understand it. You should not give that team bulletin board material. No. I mean, Nick Saban would eat that up. Now let's see if Kalen DeBoer can do it. The problem that I have in this more than anything, and you talked about humility, you got benched. Like you legitimately
And he bailed on his
bailed. Correct. He bailed on his teammates when he didn't get his way. Now, I will say this. Rightfully so. I'm not saying Bama fans shouldn't have been mad at this. Y'all said Bill O'Brien sucked when me and you were defending him, Joe, literally a year ago on the show, saying he was horrible with developing quarterbacks. Well, he had a quarterback that was a Heisman Trophy winner. So I don't know about that. I think it's funny that they're saying that, well, Bill, you couldn't even work with Bill O'Brien, but they didn't even want Bill O'Brien to call plays for them. So now they're like sticking up for him, which I think is a little bit weird in a way. Look, sometimes you got to learn when to not say stuff and not be in the public eye and do what's right for the team. You have no right to talk. Zero right to talk. You got benched. Your team went 2-10, the team that you're going into, and you're not humble. By the way, Nick Saban saving them. Nick Saban wasn't on the field tackling anybody. He recruited elite dudes. There's still some really damn good players defensively for Alabama. And, Joe, I don't know if they don't get absolutely abused by Alabama in week 1.
Well, we already talked about that. That was the whole point. And actually, thank you to Thomas, by the way, because the video that we already have, the preview that we did for week 1, the very early preview, that gave us a nice little recharge of viewership on that video. People came filing into the comments to chime in on it. So thank you, Thomas, for that. But we already spoke on how we don't have a lot of faith for Florida State to come out swinging in that game. And we did our preview and we said, look, Florida State can be competitive. And we actually spoke very highly of Castellanos. We said that, hey, like this is a redeemable opportunity for both sides. Fits perfectly with Malzahn. First game is going to be rough, but the rest of the year, you're going to be able to get into a rhythm and some momentum, and you can win 7, maybe 8 ball games if things go really, really well. But to already put such a huge red target on your head and your team is not how you want to start the year, especially when there's already a target on your head coach. I'm just perplexed how this even happens and how this is the mentality of a guy who, again, got benched, was somebody who bailed on his team, entered the transfer portal, and was afforded a tremendous opportunity to be a part of possibly the resurrection of Florida State, and then to already drag them down with such a distraction. At the end of the day, and if anyone wants to get in their feelings about this, anyone who's played the sport knows that coaches take becoming a distraction very, very seriously. Do not become a distraction. Having distractions tears a locker room apart. I'm not saying that this is enough to do that, but I'm telling you right now, during summer workouts and during fall camp, it will be something that gets brought up. And if he goes to media days, it absolutely will get brought up as well.
I'm not trying to change the subject here, but stay with me.
Okay.
What is up with these quarterbacks like Castellanos and Diego Pavia going on with Bussin' with the Boys?
Pavia pissed me off a lot. I feel like he's kind of going on like a celebrity tour after he had like one decent season. But you're right.
But here's the thing for me, and I'm not trying to steer the conversation away from Castellanos, but even Diego Pavia. I do feel like, to your point, there's a little bit of an enrichment here, like, oh, look at me, and not understanding the moment that you're in. Like, they don't understand it. And I got to be honest. Look, Joe, now that the summer's officially here and baseball is over, NBA Finals is over, and we're in a sporting dead period. I mean, I love Major League Baseball, so it's not really a dead period for me. For all you sickos who don't watch sports during the summer, you're completely missing out on a lot of great stuff. Regardless of that, Diego Pavia is saying that we're going to run the state of Tennessee after next year, and then I'm seeing people come out here.
They lost to Tennessee.
Well, they're coming out with their top 10. Exactly. They're coming out with their top 10 quarterbacks in the SEC list, and I'm seeing people that I respect having Pavia at 3 in the SEC. Are you nuts? Joe, he failed at the end of the year. He came into Baton Rouge.
Lost to Georgia State. They lost to Georgia State last year.
They did, but after losing to Georgia State, they did beat Bama, and then they almost beat Texas and lost by a field goal. The problem is, I think that his rise came because we never expected for Vanderbilt to go sub 500. Brother, you're sub 500. Same with Castellanos. Brother, the team that you're on went 2-10. And Pavia doesn't have to deal with this as much because he's in the same system for, the 4th year now? So it's a lot different. The problem that I do have, though, is I look at Tommy Castellanos. Brother, do you understand? You have brand new teammates that you have no idea how things work. You probably don't have a great connection with them yet. I'm not saying that you can't, but yet I don't think that you do. And Joe, you get to a place where how many problems will you have in week 1 versus that defense? Like when you do something like that, whether it be Diego Pavia and whether it be Tommy Castellanos, they are the face of those comments. The truth is that you're putting words in situations on your teammates' backs, and you're throwing them under the bus when you do that.
Yes.
You're throwing them under the bus. And I know that NIL has played a factor in here. God only knows how much Bussin' with the Boys paid Diego Pavia or On3 paid Castellanos to do this interview. God only knows with the new NIL situations and God only knows. But regardless, you went sub 500 at Vanderbilt and Florida State went 2-10. Put your head down and get to work. I feel like, Joe, last thing for me, I feel as if that I'm the old man sitting on the porch drinking sweet tea that's like, get off my lawn, and telling kids not to express themselves as we come on a podcast and make a living of expressing ourselves. But we also don't come out here and are so non-humble to the fact, and I understand they're kids, but the problem is, Joe, think about this. With TV revenue money, those guys are multi-million-dollar quarterbacks that are out here saying crazy shit.
Well, and I think there's a big difference here, though, between the two things. We're not speaking on ourselves. We come on this show and we project and analyze teams across the country because we've garnered the audience that wants to hear our opinions, talk about the athletes, the coaches, the teams, the traditions, all of those things. Quotes from Pavia, quotes from Castellanos, they are very egotistically and confidently pushing up themselves, and they're pushing up their teammates, but in a negative way. They're not speaking with the confidence of uplifting their teammates. They're speaking with almost blind confidence that is going to put a negative target on their back if things go awry. Again, it becomes a distraction. The equivalent for us would be if we came on here and every single day we started taking shots saying, like, if we came on here and said, like, oh, Kirk Herbstreit doesn't know shit compared to us. We're better than Kirk Herbstreit. He's not the same guy that he once was. We're way better show than anything that Kirk Herbstreit can put out. We're not saying that. We've never said anything like that. We've certainly criticized and questioned some people's opinions, but we've never shot down the credentials of well-established legacy and then try to make it seem like we were the greatest thing out there. No, we're humble of understanding of the growth that goes into this. And Castellanos and Pavia is a step further and past him, but it's all a process. You haven't done anything. Beating Alabama was a great moment. It was. But your team was still mediocre. You still lost to Georgia State. You need to understand that there's a lot more left to be accomplished for speaking so confidently the way that they were.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a bad look. If I said this is going to be the last thing, but I'm just going to throw this out there. Shame on Florida State PR team for allowing this to happen. I mean, you got to. I mean, I don't know if they just didn't know, and then NACO's ran it, and then you can't really go with it a retraction. But they can. What can they say now? Look, there is. I will give him this. The only thing that I really liked about the Castellanos situation was a kid got benched, and I'm glad that he's got that much faith in himself. But it's like the Conor McGregor situation all over again. And the analogy that we used. Everybody loved Conor McGregor when he said he was going to beat the shit out of somebody in round 1, and he went in there and did it. But then when he started getting his ass whooped, nobody liked him anymore. He was just a drunken Irish asshole, right? Like, that's how people just viewed it. I mean, it's just the truth. So what are you going to be? Now, you better get to work and you better go off. I do wonder how Gus attacks that defense, though. I do think it's still going to be a very interesting game. Well, you get tuned into it a little bit more. Yeah. Don't be surprised if there are opportunities to run up that score. I would say don't be surprised. I would not. think that they would not do that. That is for damn sure.